No.
What is that noise?
I don't know.
Can we get on with it and get
Maybe.
the fucking thing started?
Maybe we'll just won't introduce the whole thing. Hello, Internet. I'm Firebolt.
And I'm the Orbiter.
And weird singing introduction there today.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't exactly call it singing, but...
Yeah, that's a very generous, I entirely forgotten
word.
It's just insert word here that
lyric
works.
So what are we doing today?
Right, I know that we said that we were going to do follow-up every 5 episodes.
Yeah, I've got some follow-up.
But there's probably some brief follow-up that only works like around the time. Oh, and you said about saying the date of our recording each time.
Yeah. Well, today, as we record, is the 12th of July. Thursday, the 12th of July, 2018.
What have you got?
Well, funnily enough, literally about an hour and 3/4 ago, our episode 14 went out live on Twitch, UK Politics. Yeah. And we had somebody watching it who made a comment, which I would like to read out.
Oh, Christ. This is either going to be... This is going to be a ridiculous anticlimax.
No.
Or it's going to be really
it is interesting
heartfelt.
when it's not really heartfelt. It's a point that has been made, and it's to do with the anti-Semitism thing that we were talking about.
Right.
And it would be an interesting one to do a little bit of a discussion on, actually, quickly.
Very quickly.
Hello to our new follower Nasheed Servant, who said, "Daily reminder that during peak slavery, 40% of all Jews were slave owners, while being only 1.5% of the total population, and 78% of all slave owners were Jewish." I haven't checked this up. I don't know if this is true, so I can't verify those statistics. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
it would be easy to come across as anti-Semitic looking at figures like that.
From the sounds of that, they sound like someone that's going, "Oh, look at this one statistic that proves my point exactly," and then it doesn't work in loads of other situations. If you know what I mean.
You can say anything with statistics.
It just fits that particular statistic, if true. I don't know. How would you search that up?
I don't know, but it is an interesting point to differentiate between what counts as prejudice and what counts as simply reporting the truth, because
but then
there may well be
picking out specific incidences, like a couple of places do. They'll just pick out crimes that immigrants have done. I mean, and immigrants do.
I suppose
crime,
you could look
less.
at that and say it says 40% of all Jews were slave owners. That means that 60% weren't.
I guess that would more just convey that they were probably rich, because pretty much most rich people then own slaves.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been pretty sort of well accepted that Jews have historically been very good with money.
Yeah.
That was one of the, when they were sort of fleeing Germany, one of the only ways they could keep their kind of financial security was by very wisely storing their financial kind of value, if you like, in their kind of, family heirlooms and stuff, jewelry and gold and all sorts of stuff that couldn't be taken from them.
And also, whilst that may be true, that's not today. So it's kind of irrelevant. It's not inherent to the Jewish faith, I don't believe, any more than any other faith.
Interesting, though, that you should say faith, because one of the points I did make was
ethnicity,
culture. Yeah. Okay,
culture,
so thank you very much for the input, and thank you for watching.
That's us.
An interesting
It's like
statistic.
having the Twitch chat here with us, which we were trying to set up previously, but we just decided against it because it was a bit of a
So
faff.
should we move on to that particular point then? Just quickly mention about our new Patreon tier.
Oh, yes. We have now... Well, we were looking at our Patreon thing and thinking, we don't actually do much with this. We put up the schedule every month for the next month. But
that's not much of a bonus, is it, really?
And you don't really get much in the way of tiering other than the Discord roles.
And we have been sort of thinking actively about sort of providing more value to people who may want to support us, simply because we're approaching affiliate status on Twitch, hopefully very soon.
Yeah.
While we're not in it for the money, obviously we want to make sure that if anybody does want to support us, they're going to get something extra out of it.
Right now it's the average viewers, which we did hit at one point, but it kind of glitched out where we'd hit all 4 of the targets, but...
Not within the same 30-day period.
I think so, something like that. But anyway, my bit of follow-up was about...
Well, we haven't said what the extra...
Oh yeah,
tier is.
So now people that pay $5 or more, I'm not sure what that is in pounds, it's probably changing daily with how much Brexit's fucking up, will have the unedited versions of each recording up pretty much as soon as we can.
Yeah. As things stand at the moment, I'm just catching up with that, but by the time this goes out, we'll probably be up to date, so you'll be seeing things maybe 2 or 3 weeks before anyone else, albeit in a completely unedited format. Warts and all.
Warts and all.
Yeah. I keep telling Firebolt not to show his warts, and I keep editing it out, but...
That's just a really weird tangent. I'm not sure how to respond to that.
Let's move on quickly then.
Okay. What was the bit of
podcast listeners? Yeah, if you want that unedited stuff, I'm only doing it on YouTube, really. YouTube. It's unlisted videos. We'll get the links to that. So,
because it's easier to do that with that. I don't know if you can do that on SoundCloud.
You can actually, yeah. I'll maybe do that as well then. Okay. Yeah. Okay, podcast listeners, you'll get an unedited one as well, but there'll be lots of gaps in it, so I don't know whether it'll be worth your while.
Yeah.
You can gauge that.
Anyway, oh yeah, and also, did we have something else for... I think in the $10 tier, it was that we'd make a video each month, which we've yet to do. But
yeah.
We did briefly think about doing this entire podcast for them.
Why don't we start doing that?
Word. any thoughts? What were you thinking?
I don't know. I was thinking, when are we going to start doing that?
I think that's more for us to find out off camera.
Okay.
Briefly, today,
off
as
mic.
we're recording, whatever. Dear listener.
As we're recording?
Well, on the day of recording, Trump made his visit to the UK.
No, fucking hell, yeah.
Like, landed at Stansted or whatever.
Yeah.
It is interesting that it's the first time that he's done it since he took to the presidency, just because of how resilient people are, which it's one of the few things I'm proud about.
I saw a report one of his advisors was saying that there's a possibility he may sue, what's the Mayor of London's name? Sadiq Khan. Yeah. How? He may sue him over the baby blimp thing.
Would you like to explain a little further?
There's a giant inflatable of Donald Trump that is being flown over Westminster, I think. He's basically in a nappy with a dummy, and it's basically just ripping the piss out of him.
Yeah.
But Sadiq Khan, as Mayor of London, approved. It wasn't going to be allowed, but then Sadiq Khan, as Mayor of London, approved it. So, but he's not going anywhere near that. He's coming here. He's going to Stansted. He's then fucking off somewhere else. He's basically staying clear of anywhere that there's going to be protesters.
Yeah,
which is pretty much anywhere that there are people. Yeah,
I'd be going in like military bases or Buckingham Palace.
I don't think he's going to Buckingham Palace. He's going to Windsor Castle.
Oh right. But places where there's generally not a lot of people,
To see
it's
the
been
Queen.
blocked off a little, and also going off to some island in the Hebrides or something.
It'd be an awkward meeting, wouldn't it? I mean, it'd be an awkward meeting between. I suppose Theresa May's in the same kind of industry, if you like. But imagine the Queen facing the prospect of having to have a chat.
He's
with Donald
going
Trump.
to fuck it up massively.
Yeah.
Be hilarious to
He's
see
been
how
told
it
not to kiss her. Apparently.
does. Okay. Can you imagine if he does the dragon handshake thing and then just yanks her arm off?
she's like on the floor going, "Oh, Philip, fetch the corgis, set them on him."
What would even be funnier then is because you think that she's going to be really frail, is if he tries to drag her in, but she just flips him over.
Yeah. I just snorted and I'm sorry. Ninja Queen.
What the fuck is this podcast?
What?
What the fuck is this podcast?
I don't know. We'll get onto the subject eventually.
Maybe.
He's coming up to Scotland in a couple of days
Yeah. I did think
to
about
play
going
golf.
I did think about going to one of the protests.
Yeah, Glasgow's going to be the biggest one, I think, up here. But
There will be.
they're not.
some in that
They're not going to let
one.
him anywhere near him. It's just going to be.
Yeah.
Although, actually, I did see a report today as well that the police officials are up in arms about the accommodation that's been provided for the. You know, they've had to put all these extra police on. They've had
Yeah.
leave cancelled and stuff. They're basically putting them up in a sports hall on camp beds. Criminals that were arrested last night have got a better bed to sleep in than the police that have had their leave cancelled and done 12-hour shifts.
They've said that this was, I think, equivalent to to the resources that would be required if London was burning down.
I mean, can you imagine that? You've had your leave cancelled, you've been transported away from your family for a fucking idiot coming across it nobody wants here anyway, and then you're shown to your room for the night, which is a sports hall full of a couple of 100 camp beds.
Yeah, jeez.
You'd be like, what?
To be honest, if I was one of them, I'd go sod it, let the protesters have at him.
Well, that's...
I'd probably be fired.
I would imagine there'll be a lot of them that are doing the minimum amount possible to justify their presence there.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably get onto the subject eventually.
Yeah.
So,
Episode 16.
we are talking about music today.
Dum dum da. Just injecting a dramatic.
You could actually add in like a sting there.
I could.
Because like,
Every breath you take.
not that.
Oh.
I wanted to show the up to this anyway because I think he's forgotten about it.
I am SLP.
Oh Jesus,
What? What are you doing?
I'm making mistakes.
I see. I am
Just like you.
incompetent. What?
Incompetech.
Oh.
They make like royalty-free music. There we go. And this might be worth talking about anyway. But you could put like a sting in here because they have stings. So
Yeah.
go do that,
Okay.
please.
All right, we'll do.
We might use them in future too. And they have all like the credit stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you are a musician yourself.
Some would say.
Well, you play professionally,
Yeah.
so that would make you a musician.
Yeah.
Do you like to talk about that?
What would you like to know?
Oh, great. I thought you'd just go off by yourself. I'm going to have to think of something to ask you.
Music. It's something I'm extremely passionate about, obviously. It's amazing to me. It's as a musician, it's been my whole kind of life, really. Liquid mathematics.
Liquid what?
Music. Liquid mathematics.
I'm guessing that's just sort of doing maths without really
Everything
thinking about it that much, sort of fluently.
everything about. Well, there's a quote from my favourite composer, Gustav Mahler, which says that if a composer could say in words, I'm paraphrasing, if a composer could say what he meant to say in words, he would not bother to write music. It's not that exact phrase, but
it's quite weird thinking about it.
Well, it's basically
it's just
manipulation of pressure waves in mathematically related ways, and it elicits emotion. It's like that. That's what
that acoustic theory is coming into use now.
What?
That acoustic theory is coming into use now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is quite weird that we sort of. I wonder why humans, from an evolutionary perspective, find certain sounds to be pleasant together.
Well, there are specific frequencies which the human anatomy is tuned to kind of pick up on, especially, and some of that comes down to survival. Certain frequencies in the same kind of range of the human voice, obviously, is an important communication kind of tool. So the sibilance of consonants and stuff is a but it's interesting that the frequency ranges that we pick up on are equivalent to birds tweeting,
right.
And the reason for that would be because that this is one of the frequency ranges that we're particularly sensitive to, is because often if you were in the wild, in the forest, whatever, and you suddenly heard, you had to pick up on it straight away if you suddenly heard lots of birds tweeting, because it usually meant there was a predator nearby, because they were all taking flight. They were disturbed.
But then how does that transfer to symphonies?
Well, symphonies will have developed along the...
or even just sort of
I mean, they're
basic...
human-made, so they would have developed... I mean, you're talking about harmony.
Yeah.
About the relationships between different frequencies and how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
That's a massive subject.
Yeah. You'd have to ask someone that actually knows what they're talking about. Which clearly isn't us.
Well, it kind of is, but I'm trying to think of it in layman's terms.
I'm going to Google this.
You're talking about, when I said about liquid mathematics, you're talking about harmonic relationships, which in its simplest form means you can see it in the rings around Saturn. The stripes that are there are, over time, the matter which is in those rings has gravitated towards particular distances from the planet. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's to do with harmonic resonance. So it's difficult to, without trying to, not to get too technical, a harmonic relationship, basically an octave, which is the same note, but higher or lower. I don't really want to sing because I'm not a singer.
You have sung before, though.
So the distance of an octave, which is like from a C to a C,
you'll do a better job than me.
That's a sufficient explanation. From a C to a C, an octave leap is a doubling in the frequency of the sound wave.
Right.
So that's the simplest sort of harmonic relationship, if you like.
Right.
As you get higher up the harmonic series, so if you imagine a string on a violin or a guitar or whatever, when it's at its full length and it's what they call open, it'll maybe play an A. If you cut it in half, it'll play an A again, but it'll be an octave higher. And if you cut it in half again, it'll be an octave higher again. So as you get higher up, but there are different things that happen with the intervals in between as well.
You'll recognise the sort of jumps are sort of identical, I guess, to binary numbers, and how each digit of that goes up because it is doubling each time. Do you think there's any correlation there?
I don't know, actually. I mean, binary is just a number system, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot more complex
that
than
does
that because
reinforce a sort of possibility of this being a simulation.
it's a lot more complicated than that, simply because the timbre of an instrument, the tone quality of an instrument, is determined by the frequency content within it. So if you've got like a violin and you play an A, you're not simply getting 220 hertz or 440 hertz, which is the current orchestral standard for an A. You're getting other qualities in there with different frequencies intermingling that give it its kind of tone quality, if you like. So,
right. I got a Vox article up because I was wondering why we actually like music, and apparently it's kind of a mystery. It's just not really.
That is the emotions thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Because we're basically built to be pattern finders, and it's how we've gotten this far.
Yeah.
Because it's just basically patterns, then that is pleasing to us, I guess.
Now, I can understand, I mean, like, that whole idea that does blow my mind of, like, communicating emotions directly from a performer or a composer to a listener using sound pressure waves. That's a kind of mind-blowing concept. But how did that actually kind of... Why is it that specific frequencies and specific arrangements of notes elicit specific feelings? That is
basically what I was saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but why? I'm asking you.
I don't know.
There's an interesting thing,
more on
actually.
specific, yeah, like the specific feelings rather than just generally just, oh, that sounds nice. Like, you can have sad music, you can have uplifting music,
There is an interesting phenomenon, which, when you look at the way that sound waves are translated by the inner ear and then converted in the ossicles into electrical impulses that go through the auditory nerve to the brain, basically, once they get past the mechanical bit of the ear, they are then, as I say, electrical impulses in the auditory nerve.
Right.
But because of that, the simple act of focusing on listening to a piece of music, if you've got a piece of music in the background, and the difference between that and actually focusing and concentrating on that piece of music results in the fact that if you focus on a piece of music, it does actually sound different to your brain than if it's just in the background, because the feedback mechanism in the brain reinforces the electrical impulses that are...
Is that like the sort of two halves thing where, well, it's not exactly two halves, I guess, but sort of the more conscious half and then the sort of background sort of working away without the sort of subconscious half and the conscious half, I guess.
I don't know how it works. But I mean, I suppose it makes sense in that if you're concentrating on anything like a maths problem or whatever, it's...
Well, there's
it's
one
a
that's
different
more
perception,
based on
isn't it?
sort of focus and logic, from what I understand, and one that's more impulsive. I don't know. That's probably not like solid science, but
What is music as well?
sound.
What about 3 minutes 33? 4 minutes 33? Is it? Which one is it? It's something minutes 33. John Cage.
What are you on about?
John Cage, 4 minutes 33.
I have no idea what you're on about.
Well, we'll take a break and we will watch John Cage's 4 minutes 33.
But it's 7 minutes 45.
Yeah, but that'll be the performance, including the person coming up to perform it as well. Okay, we'll watch this
There's
one.
3 minutes extra of that.
Okay, it can be performed on any instruments. So we'll look at this one.
That one's 4 minutes 34.
Yeah, we'll look at this one. Okay.
So it's probably just...
So we'll
a
see you in 4
correction
minutes
YouTube.
33 seconds.
So it's essentially the silence.
You can buy it on CD. And it costs £4.33.
Fucking idiot would buy that. Oh, it's modern art. You could just sit down for that amount of time and get
But-
the same experience.
What's quite funny though, apparently this was performed when I was at music college. This was performed. I didn't see it, but I was told that there was a performance of it by one of the students there, and he performed it on French horn. And he came in and performed the first movement. It hasn't started yet.
I'm pretty sure it has.
No, it hasn't. It's about to start.
Seeing as it is pretty much silence, then you could actually include this in the thing.
He hasn't brought them in yet.
Brought them in yet?
Or maybe he has. Don't know. Imagine if you sneezed in the audience just now. He's trying to keep a straight face. Yeah, the guy that performed it at college, he came in and did the first movement, and then when it got to the second movement, he put the mute in his French horn for the second movement, and then took it out again for the third movement. So, I'm probably not going to cut this out because we've been talking through most of it. So this is not actually 4 minutes 33. We're watching 4 minutes 33 now. But anyway, yeah, is that music? John Cage is a famous composer, and he wrote it as a piece of music, and it's being performed at the Barbican here that we're watching by the London
I wouldn't
Symphony
exactly
Orchestra.
call it music, no. Just so you don't call shitting on a canvas art.
So does that mean then that silence doesn't have a place in music?
Stop asking me difficult questions. Silence does, because it's part of like the rhythm, I guess.
So that there is a function for silence in music.
Yeah, but
so where do you draw the line? Because we were always talking about grey areas. Where do you draw the line between when the function of silence... he just mopped his brow in between movements. Where the function of silence oversteps a musical device, if you like. When does silence become non-musical?
I guess when it's this.
So 4 minutes 32 would still be music then.
No, but just it has to actually have sound in it, I guess. Like intended sound.
Right. So
So there is I think there's a sort of music that I don't know, there was this thing, I've forgotten who did it. I think it was Boy in a Band. I've talked about him before, I think. Basically, it was... They had a guest on, and each of them make up 5 real instances of something, and... Well, not make up 5 real... Have 5 real instances of something, and make up the other 5. And then see if they can guess which ones are real and which ones are fake.
yeah.
In this case, they did it with styles of music and came up with a little description for one. I can't remember. There was one that was like, it's just basically the wind passes through this horn, so it's different every time you play. I can't remember if that was real or not, though.
This refers back to one of our previous topics, but this is a published piece of music, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
So how would you enforce copyright on this?
I guess you couldn't. I don't know, I guess the sort of idea of it might be copyrighted, of just releasing a...
So maybe the whole concept of this is about challenging definitions. I know in essence it's silence, and but that's kind of the thing about shitting on the canvas thing. It's about challenging.
I guess it makes a
isn't it?
statement, but
Yeah.
in the end of the day, I'm not putting this on my Spotify playlist.
But funnily enough, I have listened to Nirvana's Nevermind album while waiting for a train, and listened through the whole, I think it's like 12 or 13 minutes of silence before the hidden track. And during that time, deliberately, during that time, I have specifically listened to all the ambient background noises that are going on around me and focused on them, concentrated on really experiencing them, because there's so much stuff going on in the background in everyday life that you block most of it out.
I just had the best idea.
What?
I just had the best idea.
What?
The end of the podcast.
We're going to have a hidden
track. 5 minutes of absolute... 4 minutes 33 of absolute silence.
Shall we perform 4 minutes 33 at the end of our podcast?
Sure.
Excellent.
I mean, we don't have to actually wait out that time. We could just make a witty comment and then edit in a gap there where we just...
Yeah, but people will be able to tell that we were just putting a freeze frame on, wouldn't they?
Well, the video
we should actually perform.
But we don't care about video people, do we?
You have no artistic integrity.
Dear listener. Fine, we'll wait out the minutes.
How good a performer are you, though? Musically, could you perform 4 minutes 33 of silence?
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I would probably crack a few smiles. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but cracking a smile doesn't make any noise.
Yeah, but that might.
And how will we know when we've gone on to the second movement and the third movement? This is a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. We might do that, but just don't overdo it.
What?
Don't get the whole orchestra in and then...
Not like 4 minutes 34.
Sometimes I hate you. Don't say fucking sometimes.
All right, I'm going to have a whiskey. Fuck it. So music.
Have I gotten that bad?
Yeah, I actually...
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to start waxing lyrical. I was holding back a little bit because...
Waxing lyrical?
Yeah, I'm going to start giving... Just to give you an idea of what music means to me as a musician, it's the nearest thing... I have on my Facebook profile, I have my religion down as musician.
What, you put your religion on your Facebook profile?
Well, there's a space for if you've got a religion, and I mean it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it's I in the space where it says religious views, I put musician because it's the nearest thing I've got to. Simply because if you think about it, the thing about the rings around Saturn that I was talking about is an example of harmonic resonance, and if you think about the movement of the planets in space and the development of the universe, if you like, right from the Big Bang, everything is harmonically related. And there's a brilliant 2-part program which was on the BBC, which I think was called The Physics of Sound. It was called. I think you watched some of the first one with me, possibly, but there was a part of that was looking into the the sounds that come out of volcanoes and stuff like that. But there was also a thing about a project where they actually worked out that there is something which escapes from black holes, and that is sound.
All right.
Because if you think about it, sound isn't a single physical thing. It's a wave.
Well,
so it doesn't.
Is there any air to vibrate through then?
No, but there doesn't need to be if the matter which is being pulled into the black hole is vibrating as it goes in. It passes those vibrations outwards. I mean, we're talking about over eons of time. You know, we're talking about millennia for the smallest kind of...
Right.
So, you know, it's like if it was an actual note, it would be ridiculous, stupidly low. It would be like a frequency of like almost an infinitely small number of hertz, if you like. But it does emanate. There are sounds that emanate from volcanoes, planets. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the universe itself is, in essence, a symphony to me. And what amazes me about it is that the way the universe has developed is basically the harmonic results of the Big Bang that have eventually, over the lifetime of the universe, resulted in the complex beings that we are now, which are a part of the universe and are creating music.
Does that mean that the universe is kind of a symphony?
Yeah, to me, that's what it is. There's also a very interesting, talking about symphonies in particular. Oh, I'm just getting into a band, Symphony X. I'm getting very prog metal at the moment. I've been trying to explore, because Dream Theater are a favourite band of mine. I've been trying to explore different bands that are kind of like them, and I've just come across Symphony X, and they're astonishingly good. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, there was a 4-part series on the history of the symphony by a guy called Howard Goodall, who is an amazingly intelligent musician, but also quite funny as well. That he writes a lot of TV themed tunes, but he's done a 4-part series on the history of the symphony, and it's really interesting some of the correlations and connections that he makes between the influences that music, and specifically the history of the symphony itself, have had on historical events and cultures, and how revolutionary all of that kind of development was at the time. But he puts it a lot better than I possibly could, so I'm not going to try, but I'll put a link to that. If it's available online, I'll put a link to that up as well.
Yeah. I've been talking a lot about the sort of general concept of music, I guess, both in its physical manifestation of what it actually is and our biological need for a perception of it, I guess. Why and how we perceive it, I guess. That makes any sense. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about how influential, and you had sort of talking about that in regards to history, how influential music can be on the world and people in general.
Well, immediately when you say that, a song comes to mind. To my mind.
What's that?
Imagine by John Lennon.
Yes. What episode was it you were talking about? What's his face from Pink Floyd?
Roger Waters.
Was that Brexit?
No. He was talking about ISIS, wasn't he?
Yeah, but what episode would have that been in?
Don't know. War?
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because the Wall had a lot of connections with war, and he's very much, I suppose he's like the equivalent of a war poet, but in music.
That's an interesting point. Do you think poetry is music?
No, I think it's poetry. But it has musical qualities to it. It has rhythm, and it has, I don't know, because because rap is fairly established as a musical form, and that's kind of,
it tends to have musical elements behind it, though, with instruments, I think.
Yeah,
it's quite rare to just get someone just rapping without anything else there.
That's true, yeah.
As an actual song.
So there would be certain elements. There has to be. Is there a definition of music? I mean, most people would think that it has to have rhythm, it has to have pitch.
Vocal or instrumental sounds, or both, combined in such a way as to produce beauty of form, harmony, and expression of emotion.
Quite a limiting, because I mean, avant-garde music really stretches that definition. I mean, there's some Malcolm Arnold stuff, 20th century stuff.
I guess that's why I wouldn't call
actually
4 minutes 33 music.
Okay, but there are all sorts of things that push the boundaries of that definition that aren't just silence. There's Malcolm Arnold stuff where there are parts scored in the music for tuned vacuum cleaners and transistor radios tuned to a particular frequency.
Right.
Which obviously means that every performance is going to be different because those frequencies are going to be picking up different things at different times. I would call that maybe experimental in nature.
Yeah, definitely.
But then that's how the boundaries... I mean, you know, some of the music that we listen to nowadays, if people had heard that, say, 300 or 400 years ago, would that have seemed as alien to them as a lot of the stuff that's pushing the boundaries now does to us? In 300 or 400 years, will stuff like that sound like music to people? Because they've got more used to a wider definition.
It would have sounded more alien in the past, especially with the vacuum cleaner, because it wouldn't have been invented. And generally, I guess, like at the time, Beethoven, I think, was considered quite... was it Beethoven or Mozart? It was considered quite experimental, I guess. Or like rebellious to the norm of music then.
I think all the greats that survive tend to push the boundaries. But it's getting the balance, isn't it?
In the same vein of that, there's a YouTuber, Andrew Huang.
Who?
Andrew Huang, I don't know, Huang. And he makes sort of usually fairly experimental stuff, including making music out of Donald Trump's sniff. Yeah,
you can do anything with samples.
Yeah, so
there's also...
Would you consider that sort of stuff music?
You know, we're at the point now where AI can write music. You know, you can feed in the elements of the perfect or the most, you know, a guaranteed successful pop hit, and an AI can churn one out.
Yeah. Pretty competently too.
Yeah. But when you think of music as the communication of emotion, what is that saying? What is that doing? Where is the emotion coming from there? If there is any. Does that mean that AI can convey emotion, can communicate emotion?
Yeah. I think so. Why not?
Why not, indeed?
We're basically just fleshy computers anyway.
Yeah.
We've got a weird conversation. Yeah. I thought this would be like a nice happy break from all the crime and UK politics and all that shit. But no, we've just gone completely...
Really cheesy, but have you heard of a song called Music by John Miles?
No.
It is pretty cheesy, but the lyrics of it sum up how I feel about music. Would you like to have a listen? Would you like to have a break and a listen?
Oh, sure.
It is cheesy. But yeah, go and have a listen to John Miles' music if you don't know it already. And Patreon listeners, you can enjoy it along with us. Anyway, that was we had a break there. We listened to music by John Miles, which
I'm
is
not listening to Toto.
Yeah. What can I say?
I think you're just looking for excuses to listen to music you like.
No, I meant that the last one. But I just one thing I would like to, I did want to bring up was I do think that possibly it's an underappreciated form. It does worry me that music isn't considering the benefits, the mental health benefits of, because it's highly unusual for a professional musician to suffer from stuff like dementia and Alzheimer's later in life.
Right.
And that's specifically because of the pathways in the brain that are exercised when practicing and performing, and you know, it's a mental discipline, and it keeps all of that stuff active when you're performing. So I think it's very performing music and practicing music and being musical is a huge benefit.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people forget just how much of a part it plays in the day-to-day
Everything.
life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's an impossible thing to achieve, but if somebody could make it possible to try to go a whole week without hearing or listening to any music, I think you would appreciate just how
Like, if you
big a part it plays in life.
watch any film and just took away the music, most of the impact would be gone, and it would just be pretty boring.
It's almost like it's there to guide the emotions of the viewer, isn't it? It's there to provide the atmosphere. And
I did want to talk a little bit about the sort of, sometimes you do get songs that specifically try and make a political message.
Manic Street Preachers.
Okay,
just sprang into my mind. Yeah,
like Imagine.
Yeah,
I do have a couple of examples of that.
There's all the punk stuff from the 70s, Sex Pistols.
Yeah, that was quite influential and scared a lot of
There's
people
usually a
then
message.
because it made that sort of message that they didn't like.
Yeah,
to be rebels.
That is one good thing about Bad Situations, that it produces great art.
Yeah,
War.
It's kind of funny at the peak of the Cold War when everyone was panicking and shit. Just the 80s music was absolutely mental, as well as the fashion.
At the time, we thought it was a bit shit, but actually, going back and listening to it now, it's like actually,
brilliant stuff.
And there's a lot of good stuff that's come out of the as a response to the whole 9/11 thing. There are bands that have formed because of that.
But I don't really like pop these days.
Pop.
Occasionally there'll be a song that I'm like, oh yeah, that's all right, I guess. And maybe I'll go back later and go, oh yeah, that wasn't actually quite so bad. It was just because it is popular, it gets overplayed so much, and then it's like, this isn't fun anymore. I'm just listening to the same song. It's like radio stations that just, because I get a taxi to school and the driver will put on the radio, and like in the morning I'll have this song on, and then in the afternoon it's like, I thought they played that song earlier. Are they just repeating shit?
Well, do you know what I think the trouble is?
And then they'll do that the exact same schedule usually the next day, and we'll just be listening to the same song at the same point in the journey.
Don't they? They have a weekly playlist.
But are they just putting that on for the entire week?
Pretty much, yeah. Each week there's a playlist.
Jesus, that's lazy.
And it's agreed at a meeting. But this is the pop industry. I mean, specifically for music that's intended to be popular, it has to be instantly. It has to have like a hook that you can instantly kind of understand it and stuff. I get much more out of music that I have to work at and listen to several times, and then you start to get it, and then you get a whole lot more out of it, stuff. This is why I like prog metal, because
there is a song,
it takes some work.
One of the songs that I was going to talk about that makes a political message that I did have to listen to several times to sort of get the feel of it and appreciate it for its musical value other than its political message. And it's relatively recently. Childish Gambino, I think, rapper, real name Donald Glover. He's played Lando in the Solo.
I was going to say, I'm sure I've heard
movie.
That name.
Yeah. Did I say it was called This in America? Maybe I did.
There was a band in, I don't know if it was the 80s or the 90s.
Say what you need to say.
Pop Will Eat Itself.
No idea what you're talking about.
That was the name of a band. It was called Pop Will Eat Itself. When you were talking about pop music earlier.
Right.
Yeah, that does immediately make me think of something which ties back into... right, okay, so Queen were one of my all-time favourite bands, like when I was growing up. And one of the things that Roger Taylor mentions in one of the interviews, talking about the whole in the documentaries, they're talking about the whole development of the pop video, if you like. was that it is the visuals are becoming just as much a part of the whole sort of art process, if you like, and almost sometimes more important than the music itself. And he thought that maybe it was sometimes to the detriment of the music. I'm not sure I agree with that, but this is kind of one of the things that I really like about musical theatre is, and it's the same with kind of videos that go along with songs. This is right back to, you've heard of Wagner.
Yeah.
He was really into something, a concept which is basically total art, which is that music for him it wasn't just about the music; it was about a complete something that incorporated all the art forms. And in his era and in the musical theatre era, it was about sort of there's the costume, there's the performance, there's a performing arts thing, there's the dance, there's the visuals, the whole thing is all wrapped up together in a performance which is total art. It's got poetry, it's got music, it's got dance, it's got theatre, it's got music. I've said that before, haven't I?
It's like,
but you know what I mean?
Carl.
This is what
I'm just remembering just a minute where you were talking about boys' names or something, and you said Carl twice. A really short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I was saying about Alzheimer's and performing musicians? Unfortunately,
Yeah, but you're just a twat.
I'm not just a twat, I'm many other things too.
I see. Earlier, we were actually going to be recording Scotland Yard Part 2, but just decided to set up a podcast because I was going to have notes prepared and shit, but I didn't get round to it because I thought we'd be recording on Sunday.
Evidently.
Absolute
tosspot.
cock.
Don't talk about your dad like that.
Also,
it's been a bit random, hasn't it, this one?
Yeah, right, maybe. Oh, free flowing and jazzy.
Jazz.
Oh, yeah, that was a good segue, wasn't it?
Jazz. Excellent album by Queen. 1977. One of their best albums, actually. Anyway, yeah, jazz. There's too much to talk about with music. It's such a wide... I mean, I'm thinking like the film Whiplash, the big band sort of jazz sound. There's fusion. There's like...
Oh, yeah.
There's so much stuff.
Okay. I'll get the other song I was talking about.
You've hijacked this.
What?
You've hijacked this playlist malarkey.
How have I hijacked this playlist?
You're about to play another song.
Well, you played two. I know one of them was Silence, but...
Oh, yeah. That didn't count. That was about a concept, not a...
Mine are about concepts too. This is another one that, guess you're thinking. I believe you have heard this. It's called Look at the Elephant. It's by a British rapper called Dan Bull.
Do you like rap?
I like interesting rap.
Right.
I don't listen to like Drake and shit. But
I don't even know. I didn't even know.
Exactly. That's how...
Nathan Drake.
No. Drake's a pretty popular rapper.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've never listened to it as far as I know. He might be on like radio stations and shit. Yeah, this is... Dan Bull generally does sort of gaming raps. He also did No Cube's theme tune before he got rid of it. But occasionally he'll do something more political, like telling the NSA to fuck off, whatever. This one's called Look at the Elephant. It's generally just talking about ways to get you thinking about what you actually believe about yourself and about the world. It's interesting.
I think that just... I mean... That's an example of that. Just sums it up. It's kind of music gives you the opportunity to say anything and have people listen. Because how much of what he was saying there would anyone bother listening to if he was just saying it?
I don't know.
It's people will listen. If you say something with music, people will listen, even if they don't know they're listening. And I think that's the power of it. I think it's one of the most powerful weapons in changing perception and changing people's views, because it's a stealth weapon. Do you know what I mean? I mean, how many people, you can't measure it, but how many people will have considered the possibility that there is no God because of the single line in John Lennon's Imagine? Imagine no religion. No, what was it? Imagine... in fact, even that, it doesn't say that. It's just like an afterthought. He just says, and no religion too. It's like a throwaway line. Yeah. But that gets embedded in your subconscious. And how many people, because of that, get it into their subconscious from some song that they didn't really pay much attention to at the time? Oh, it was a really good song. Yeah, it was really successful. But you didn't sort of think, hang on a minute, this guy's challenging the establishment here. Or maybe they did. I don't know. In the 60s, maybe they did. But it is a throwaway line, and it means so much, you know?
There are probably other songs that have influenced people in that way in regards to religion that are quite popular too.
Nightwish do a lot of that, don't they?
Yeah, they actually had Richard Dawkins do an introduction for a lot of their songs, or an outro for a lot of their
that
songs
whole
on the
album was basically
album.
like a
basically just fuck you, evolution is true.
Yeah, it was basically a propaganda machine for, well, not propaganda, but it was a publicity machine for
science.
What's his name?
Richard Dawkins.
No, the guy that wrote The Origin of Species.
Darwin.
Yeah, that's the one. I knew it began with a D and had in it as
you
well.
You got the name Charles Darwin. Jesus Christ, you are a twat. Either that or drunk.
I don't drink very often.
Is that your justification?
I don't need justification.
I'm judging you now.
I don't care.
Clearly.
What? I like music.
I think we go with that.
Oh, shall I show my cup?
Why?
I'll have to read it out as well.
Yeah, because the camera's not going to pick it up very well, especially on our fucking podcast. Dear listener.
Yeah, so I'm showing it to the camera just now, and I will read it out to the podcast. This is my favourite mug. It says on it, the finest, it's actually total bollocks, but it says on it, the finest talented and composed musician, here to play. Music gives you soul. I've got an instrument and I'm not afraid to use it. Uwe Mrs. Fnar Fnar. Jesus Christ. It doesn't say Uwe Mrs. Fnar Fnar. I said that.
What does that even mean?
What, Fnar Fnar?
Yeah.
Finbar Saunders and his double entendres. Viz.
What the fuck?
I can't believe you don't read Viz. Finbar Saunders and his double entendres. It's a comic strip. It's basically a guy that sees rude meaning in everything.
I feel like that's said.
Yeah, pretty much. He's an eternal teenager.
So like you then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Peter Pan.
What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, Whiplash. Do you want to talk about that?
Whiplash.
That is...
excellent film. Absolutely.
It's a film. We're not going to make you watch the whole film if you don't want to.
But fucking watch it if you haven't seen it.
Can we technically? How would we link? Would we link to that on IMDb?
I think it might be on Netflix, but I'll link to it on IMDb and people can find it wherever they wish.
Yeah.
But it won. I mean, one of the main characters who plays the music professor, if you like. He is a complete and utter arsehole. And whether or not you agree with his approach is up for debate. But it is... Yeah. There's some excellent music in it, and it does it does pass comment on what it takes to be the best.
He basically straight up abuses his students to try and get them to be at their very best.
And, you know, whether or not you agree with that approach is debatable. I personally don't, but the guy won an Oscar for the performance that he put in as that professor.
We won't spoil it too much, but
it's really good.
It does make a lot of comment on the effect that does have on people. And I remember when after watching it, saying to you something along the lines of, how and why would anyone think that that's a good idea? And you said it's draws a similarity to how some musicians push themselves.
Yeah, and you'd get the same sort of thing with top performing athletes. You know, I mean, to get to the very top of any field, you have to become obsessed by it to the point where you have no conception anymore of whether or not it's actually doing you harm. You know, when that obsession becomes everything, when the obsession to be the best at what you do takes over every aspect of your life.
To be the best at something, you don't necessarily need to be obsessed with being the best at it. You just need to how do you have an obsession with that thing?
How do you keep tabs on whether or not you're either being abused by whoever's driving you, or you're abusing yourself by overdriving yourself to that level of perfection? You know, it's kind of...
I think
how do you keep sane? Basically?
I think there are a few fields where the top people, you do have to push yourself, but they don't push themselves to that level. Like in science, you don't have people abusing themselves to be the top there, because generally in that sort of environment, the idea of being the top isn't really necessary.
But I think in any field, the more successful you get and the higher you get in that field, the more pressure there is. And I think that's what it boils down to. It's about dealing with pressure.
And I guess with things like music and sport, where it is definitely quite competitive, then that is more likely to happen.
And you can harm yourself in terms of... I've known violinists that have ended up getting tendonitis when they're at music college because they're practicing for hours and hours and hours every day, and they've then had to give up playing for months to recover. And you get that with athletes. You know, it's like you can't...
Yeah.
You can push yourself so hard that you actually end your own career. You know.
Yeah.
But it's keeping perspective, because you've got to have a certain amount of obsession to lock yourself away in a room on your own and practice for hours and hours on end to be that good. How do you keep a tab on reality? And what is reality?
Jesus, this has gotten deep again.
Wow, that got deep. We haven't done that for ages.
Yeah, we said that was going to be our catchphrase, and it's just like...
It keeps coming back.
Occasionally. It's just an occasional sort of, hello, I'm still here.
Wow, that got deep. Hello, I'm still here. We should have a t-shirt that says, wow, that got deep on the front, and hello, I'm still here on the back. Or the other way around.
That would be really difficult to explain to literally anyone. It's like, what does your t-shirt say? Why?
Breaking Dad. Breaking Bollocks. They'd be like, what?
Yeah, when we do eventually get round to making that, Mr. Orbiter.
Yeah, I've got so much on.
It's the holidays.
It's not my fucking holidays. I've got stuff to put on eBay. I've got
really angry at me.
I don't get a holiday.
You don't have to put
my
everything
boss is an
eBay.
arse.
It's you.
Yeah, I know. You won't give me any time off.
And that sort of fits in with pushing yourself, I guess.
Yeah. But I get bored if I'm not doing stuff. Yeah, I know. It does actually, if we're going to be winding up soon, it does bring me down to... I'm really enjoying... No, I'm really enjoying doing this, and I want to do more and more of this channel.
Do you want to talk briefly about our music preferences?
Okay.
So I have said that I'm. I can't remember if you just kept cutting me off, so I didn't actually get a chance to say anything. But I'm generally
I should
not
do it again.
a fan of today's pop music.
I don't actually know much about it because I don't listen to the radio much. Well, I don't listen to the radio at
A
all.
lot of
really.
it is just like
For years,
the
if I ever
sort of
listened to
thing
the
that
radio,
you would imagine to be there, ridiculously
it's
over the
always been
top.
shit. Pop music.
Has it?
I don't know.
Bohemian Rhapsody was pop at its time, wasn't it?
It challenged things a huge amount. It nearly didn't get released because it was too long. It was revolutionary.
Yeah, so
there are things,
I think pop music
but there's
has
always
been good.
I think you're maybe talking about a specific core kind of standard because there's always exceptions. Even back in the 80s when there was a lot of, I mean, I suppose in the 70s it would have been kind of disco stuff. 80s it all turned very electronic, but all the time there was always rock going on.
Yes, but but rock was a lot more influential than right now. I guess rock is an influence of it because it influenced from the past, I guess, but it's not really.
I think there's a lot more diversity now.
There's not, though. Not in pop music. There's.
Yeah, but are you talking about pop music as a style or as a definition of how well it sells?
Well, I guess pop music is defined by how well it sells generally, but this has been scientifically done. Music nowadays is generally uses the same, more of the same chord progressions, the same melodies.
I just don't listen to that stuff.
Even the same, but yeah, I know you don't listen to it.
We don't have to, though.
Yeah, but sometimes I have to put up with other people listening to it.
Do you? Why?
Because it's a bit weird to say, oh yeah, that's a bit shit, and then just get the person to stop listening to it, because then they'll be really...
It's a weird thing, though, because...
It basically means, well...
Obviously, being in a...
Aside from the social factor, I just hate disco because they play shit music. I usually end up standing awkwardly around the side, not talking to anyone anyway.
I have found it interesting as a musician that, obviously being in a function band, wedding band type thing, from time to time I have to learn new songs that are fairly relevant and stuff. And the sort of songs that I would have found really naff and not really listened to, and when I start working out the keyboard part for it and writing it down and learning to play it, it becomes a lot more stimulating than I would expect it to in a lot of cases. Stuff like, for instance, I would have never listened to something like Uptown Funk.
But that just annoys me if it's on.
And that would fit into the pop music category, although it's more... Yeah. But the thing, I wouldn't listen to it, but I do find it more stimulating to perform when I realise what makes it up musically. I can
get that effort does go into this stuff. And
so why not
for the most part, they're not just throwing it together in an afternoon.
So when do you actually have to listen to the music that annoys you?
Well, there was a particularly annoying thing. I remember when moving up to secondary, because quite often they just packed you into the hall to keep you there whilst they're telling you shit or whilst they're figuring out where you're meant to be next. They just played like pop music through the speakers. It fucking annoyed me. And also just generally annoying people just start singing pop songs randomly. Yeah. I'm just like, I hate you, fuck off. I just get really annoyed at people. I think it's people that are the problem.
Okay.
I think we can generally accept that with most things I'm talking about. I sound really weird.
So what are you into then, musically?
I have a really weird set of music preferences, I think, because literally I have like a big playlist of, I think it's over 200 songs.
Ever expanding.
Possibly about 300 songs, actually.
It is quite a mix.
Yeah, literally on one of the things you have I'm in the Mood for Dancing, which is sort of 70s disco thing.
Very much pop of the time.
Yeah. Well, it's not that I don't like pop, it's just that I don't like pop now, and I don't see how that could age into being like a sort of thing. It's like, oh yeah, we hated it at the time, but now we realise it's brilliant.
But that's a similar kind of... I'm not saying that it's different nowadays, but like back in the 80s, I used to think Duran Duran was just shit. But you go back to listen to it now, and it's like, actually, that's really good stuff.
There's a couple of bands that I'm like, they're quite popular, but I don't actually know any of their songs. Oasis, I've only heard one song of theirs.
Really?
As far as I know. That I would actually be able to recognise as theirs, and it's only because it was directly pointed out because it was in music that we were listening to an example of it.
Yeah.
But Duran Duran, I wouldn't be able to name a single song. It's weird.
That annoys me.
What?
When stuff... that reminded me when you said that, and I don't know if it was this song that you were talking about, but I remember my brother, who's a teacher, putting on Imagine by John Lennon in class once, and one of the kids in his class accusing them of accusing John Lennon of ripping off Oasis.
When was that song made?
What, Imagine?
I know that it would have been definitely before Oasis, because John Lennon died before they were even a band.
I'm tempted to say 1980, but that's when John Lennon was shot, wasn't it? Certainly late 70s.
I'll look it up. I saw 70 something.
Take away
71.
71? Is it that old? Really?
Guess so.
Okay. Yeah, and then what's the song, the Oasis song that has the exact quote in the as the intro? Look inside the eye of your mind.
I have no idea. I don't. Like I said, I could.
Don't look back in anger.
Right.
It's Oasis. The intro is an exact copy of the piano intro from Imagine, and yeah.
But
having said that, I was quite surprised to hear that The Great Pretender by Freddie Mercury was a cover.
I was in the middle of talking about something.
Yeah, but I
we just completely tangent off. Yeah. Anyway, point is,
it's annoying, isn't it?
There's I'm in the Mood for Dancing, and then the next song on that is, I think it's what's it called?
Don't know.
You Want a Battle, Here's a War by Bullet for My Valentine, which is very much in the category of heavy metal.
Yeah. And then you'll be like sort of Anthem from Chess or something, or something from Hamilton.
It's generally musicals, 80s, 70s, possibly 90s pop or rock, classic rock, and heavy metal. The exception to that possibly being Muse, because they can't really be defined as far as I know. Yeah. Oh, and also like a couple of, I guess, emo stuff like My Chemical Romance.
I can't in all conscience say that any music is crap, because I know at times in the past I've had particular kinds of music that I don't really... R&B I didn't used to rate at all, although now I know that there are some good R&B songs. I think it's really about quality, because you can get good music in any genre.
Like you say R&B, but I couldn't actually... Like, if you played me an R&B song, I couldn't actually define that in my mind separately from other stuff. Like, rhythm and bass. Loads of things feature rhythm
and blues.
Rhythm and blues.
Yeah.
Okay, well, loads of things have blues influence. Rock has blues influence.
That's one quite well...
Lots of stuff has rhythm.
Yeah.
Kind of a central part of
pigeonholing things is not worthwhile to me. And I think that so a lot of the best musicians challenge that by, like you mentioned, Muse. You know, when they first came out, they could quite easily have been labelled as a kind of an emo kind of rock metal outfit, but they've done.
But sometimes they'll just come out with really different kind of songs. Like
They've
sometimes
done
they'll go,
dubstep stuff, you know? It's
yeah,
like-
but they do it well, and I think any style can be good as long as it's performed well and without all the bullshit repetition. And I
Good
mean,
music defies
repetition is good for music, like with riffs and stuff, but just repeating the same thing over and over again gets really boring.
There's a very fine line. Good music uses repetition well, but it then takes you by surprise at exactly the right moment.
Yeah, it's that exact mix between familiarity and surprise.
Yeah.
Which I may have quoted from somewhere because that sounds quite familiar to me.
Are you surprised?
Not really. It's probably a TED talk or something.
No, I think I might have said it actually.
Possibly.
There's the surprise.
We're getting to quote ourselves.
Let's just... Coda.
Coda?
Coda.
Coda. What?
Coda is the final section of a piece of music.
Oh, I wanted to talk about why
Jesus.
I like... I'll let you get onto that soon enough.
What, Jesus?
No, fuck's sake. The coda thing, whatever. The reason...
Shit, it's 25 past midnight.
Yeah, because you decided to record at fucking 10.
I was cleaning the bathroom.
Yeah, because you decided to be a chores man. What was I going to say? Fuck's sake. This is the most just bullshit laid back podcast, I think. Well, not laid back, but just a bit random and sporadic. I'm getting to worry that we're making a trend of us just...
We're up to an hour and 3/4 now, nearly.
Yeah, we thought the Brexit podcast was going to be like really...
This is why we need to go live stream.
Yeah, but that's a faff.
Yeah, we'll sort it though at some point. So, how are we gonna bring this to a close? Because I think we need to.
No,
Are you blaming me for it getting longer?
no, I need to talk. Shit, what was I on about? I've completely lost my train of thought because you've just going.
That's
Oh,
right.
look at the time! Oh,
Blame
look at this
me.
section of music! Oh,
Blame
look at
me.
this!
Blame me.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! What were you talking about? Oh no! This.
I'll just perform John Cage for you. Hang on.
Oh, I see. Are we going to still do that at the end?
No, I can't be asked.
I can.
Can you? Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, shall
Not
we?
now. I was going to talk about... Right. It was why I...
Get a stopwatch out.
Do you mind? It's why I like some particular kind of music with... Is the way that they convey...
I started looking at my phone.
Do you
Sorry.
fucking mind?
Sorry.
I'm going to slap you in a second.
Ow.
You just made a little bit of music. Anyway, generally the reason I like sort of things like heavy metal and rock is that they convey emotion particularly strongly. A lot of people generally don't like metal because they just think, oh, it's just noise and people screaming. Well, I don't tend to like the stuff that's on the more side of that. I tend to like it where there's a little bit more melody involved.
Metal's a guitar sound, really, isn't it? Because
Yeah. But
I mean, Iron Maiden used to be considered heavy metal when back in the early 80s, but now
I
it's
think
kind
that's
of
good.
light rock, really. Now
It's not really.
it's not light rock, but it's
I would
certainly
call
not.
it-
I wouldn't call
I
it.
would still call it metal, but
Yeah, but what is it about it? Because it's not very heavy. I wouldn't call it heavy metal.
I don't know.
I tend to think of things like Slayer and Anthrax, and
It's not heavy metal, it's just sort of metal by itself.
yeah, okay.
But I quite like the way that it conveys emotion quite strongly, and a lot of the stuff that I don't like, it's very happy. Basically, I like people being angry at shit and being depressing. But also like songs that just
Passion.
sort of
Having
make...
emotion about stuff.
Yeah. Songs that just sort of make you feel like a badass, like Psycho. Just if I'm walking about listening to that, I can't not just
I must
smile
admit,
a little bit.
it is the best thing for exercising too. Like I have heavy metal or heavy rock on all the time on my earphones when I'm at the gym, because it just gives you that kind of yeah. And I feel a bit of a twat now.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add? Because this is getting quite weird. It gets to that time of night when if I go downstairs and my skin will start itching, I'll think there's a spider there and I'll just look everywhere thinking that the spider's places and then get really paranoid about shit.
Shit just turned weird.
What?
Shit just turned weird. You're twitching in one eye.
That happened.
Hang on, you didn't put anything in my drink, did you?
It would be my drink, wouldn't it? No,
Okay.
just at a certain time of night,
That's
I go really bizarre.
I think we should coda now.
What's a coda?
It's the end of a piece of music.
Ah, I thought you said it was a particular section of music.
It is. It's the end section.
Right.
It's like when you go into the coda, that means you're approaching
Was
the
that
end. It's the finale.
Was that your subtle way of trying to end it?
Yeah. DS al coda. Dal segno al coda. Go to the coda. Coda.
Right.
Coda.
I have been Firebolt.
I've been the Orbiter. We haven't performed John Cage.
We are
minutes, have
going
we?
to.
Oh, we're going to do it. We're going to do it after the.
Will we do that so that you don't fucking interrupt it?
Yeah, but that's still going in. You know that, don't you?
Christ. And now we are going to perform to you John Cage's.
Is this after the outro?
No.
Oh, before the outro.
This is fine. We'll do this after the. We'll do this after the whole.
Yeah, people might not listen to the outro otherwise. If you want to hear John Cage 4 minutes 33, listen to the outro first, and then we will perform it for you.
But we need to get the timing right, don't we?
We do. So I'll set a timer up while we do the goodbye bit.
Goodbye bit.
Yeah.
Goodbye. We already did that.
We
We
didn't
said
do all of it,
I.
did we? No, you started saying it.
Fine.
I'd interrupted you, which I don't normally do.
I've been Firebolt,
I've been the Orbiter.
and this has been
Completely fucking chaotic.
yeah. Episode 16 of Breaking Bollocks.
Jesus, 79 hours, no.
Music. Do you mind not interrupting again?
It's what I do.
And this has been Breaking Bollocks, episode 16, music.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for watching. We'd really appreciate it if you support us on various things, obviously subscribing on YouTube, Twitch, following us on Twitter or Facebook. We have a Discord server that you can join and talk to us and other people, and a website where you can check out blog posts.
And obviously this isn't free for us to run, so if you'd like to support us financially, we have a Patreon page where you can donate monthly and get subscriber rewards. We also have a Stream Elements tipping page where you can make one-off donations. The links are all in the description.
Farewell.
See you next time.
Are you ready for this
Okay.
premium performance?
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time
seat yourselves.
on Breaking Dad, we are going to perform a piece of music for you.
Yes.
We're going to sing it, or do you want to go get your drumsticks and play drums for it?
Oh, I should go there.
Yeah, go get your drumsticks. Shall I get my trumpet, actually?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. We're going to be back in a moment. Quite seriously, though.
What?
In the spirit of John Cage's intention for this piece, anyone who is dedicated enough to actually watch our performance of John Cage's 4 minutes 33, please enjoy your ambient surroundings. So, are we ready?
Do you want to count in, or would that kind of ruin it?
Why don't you hold your drumstick up, and when we start, you bring your drumstick down, and that'll be the start.
I'll do that for each movement.
Okay.
Wait.
We ready?
Yep.
I'm waiting for you to start.
Alright. Sorry. And that has been a very poor performance of 4
That,
minutes
ladies
33.
and gentlemen, is the difference between a professional.
Yeah,
How do you stop this?
we truly don't do it justice.
What?
We truly don't.
I was
do it
out of tune all the way through because my tuning slide's not working properly. That shows how long it is since I did proper practice.
Yeah, I did a few.
We haven't taken a bow.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you would please applaud.
They're probably looking at our t-shirts now. Can we stop now?
Yeah, maybe. Goodbye, dear listener.